Good afternoon. My name is J.C. Polanco, and I'm an attorney in New York City, and I teach at the City University of New York. I live in the Bronx, and I'm very excited to be here and seeing you again in action on day two. Can't wait to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Ellen Iwamoto. I'm Director of Civics Programs at the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania. Looking forward to hearing your presentation today.
There we go. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jeff Owen, retired Chief Operating Officer of the American Bankers Association, with you today from the Washington, D.C. area. Looking forward to it and good luck.
If you could kindly introduce yourselves and your teachers, we'd appreciate it.
I'm Sarah Gastineau.
I'm Ella Howard.
I'm Tyler Frieden.
And I'm Isaiah Hamilton. We are Unit 6 from Fall Creek Junior High, and our sponsors are Mr. Patrick Bradshaw and Mrs. Jeannie Medeiros.
Well, welcome. Let's begin. Right now, as you know, we're focusing on what are responsibilities of citizens. Now, what role, if any, should the United States play in helping other nations or promoting democratic ideas and principles around the world? We're going to hear from you regarding things like, what are the advantages and disadvantages of nation states? What criteria should be used to determine which countries should be helped and what kind and level of help the United States should offer these countries? And then in what ways do nations of the world interact with each other? You may begin.
Not merely a nation, but a nation of nations, said former President Lyndon B. Johnson, referring to the United Nations.
We believe that the United States should have a role in aiding other nations and promoting democratic ideas. Helping other nations can provide the United States with many advantages. Also, the promotion of democratic ideas is beneficial because we're providing nation citizens such as Viet Sini an opportunity to have a say in their government.
The idea of nation states has several advantages. In nation states, citizens identify with the country. Citizens enjoy being a part of a nation state because they have the opportunity to connect to society by culture. Generally, with nation states, most people have the same religious and political beliefs, and people can practice their culture more openly. Also, some may argue, nation states allow for a governance structure that is more efficient, meaning if they are bigger and don't have singular participation.
On the contrary, having a higher population density, as shown in certain nation states, can cause major environmental issues. Japan's population density of 899 people per square mile has put a strain on its economy. In comparison, the United States population density is 93 people per square mile. Nation-state attacks are another issue because they can cause much harm to private citizens. For example, the Russia-Ukrainian war caused immense death and destruction to the citizens of Ukraine. The motive of acquiring land that started this conflict had little to do with the everyday Ukrainian citizen and more to do with the desires of the Russian nation-state. This war is one of the many that occurred between nation states.
Reasons for these wars between nation states are most commonly caused by the strict and structured environments. So nation states are likely to get protected of their environments and can easily find a reason to go to war. These wars can show a negative aspect of nation states because they are very damaging to the citizens living in these societies.
Most of us believe that the criteria that should be used to determine which countries should be helped should have countries having humanitarian crises. For example, in 2017, the U.S. responded to a 7.1 magnitude earthquake in Mexico by giving $3 million and sending out a disaster assistance response team to search and rescue people in destroyed buildings. The kind of help that the majority of us believe that the United States should provide to other countries is donating relief money and sending out rescue groups as shown in Mexico.
The United States should also donate to causes such as COVID-19 support and vaccines to other countries. The level of support that the United States should offer should be how severe the situation is. For example, the Syrian refugee crisis caused by the Syrian civil war is a very big problem because there was a large exodus of 5.6 million refugees from Syria. And in response to this large problem, the United States donated $9.5 billion in humanitarian assistance to those affected by the Syrian crisis. The United States also allows refugees to seek asylum in the country. Although the amount we allow is low, compared to other countries such as Hungary, a country that has a low refugee acceptance rate, does not allow them to seek asylum. Also, allowing refugees to seek asylum is a great act of selflessness for the United States. This level of assistance shows how the U.S. interacts with and helps other countries.
Nations of the world interact in many ways through building alliances, buying and selling products, and providing help in many situations. Nations need to interact with each other in order to grow their economies. Buying and selling products is crucial to growing an economy because they're not only making money, but achieving items needed for survival. Organizations such as the UN, which includes over 190 countries, help each other with global crises such as COVID-19. Other organizations like NATO and the OAS help nations interact by bolstering allyship and forming military and political alliances with other countries and nations.
Nations form alliances for safety and as a way to promote peaceful environments that other nations wouldn't want to attack. Although supporting other nations benefits them, it can also benefit us. What happens on the other side of the world has an impact everywhere. As Lee Hamilton once said,
"Foreign aid is neither a failure or a panacea. It is instead an important tool of American policy that can serve the interests of the United States and the world if wisely administered." We are now prepared for your follow-up questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I know your parents work very hard and they pay a lot of taxes every year. I want to know what your thoughts were regarding American foreign aid. Is it a benefit to the American taxpayer or is it just a cost? What are some of the things that should go into consideration before we go off and give out foreign aid?
I think one of the considerations that we do before giving off foreign aid is what the situation is. For example, in Haiti, when they're having a very bad humanitarian situation, the U.S. donated $180 million worth of humanitarian assistance. And in my opinion, that is not a waste of money.
to add on to my colleague, less than 1% of federal funding goes to foreign aid. So it really doesn't account for much of the taxes paid.
To add on to my colleague Ella, as a percentage of GDP, 0.18% of the US federal budget as a percent of GDP is spent on foreign aid, which is way lower than the target set by the UN at 0.7%, which have been reached by other countries and our allies such as the UK and Sweden.
Thank you so much for those answers.
So I would like to go and talk about the Constitution. Where in the Constitution, what provisions can you point out or highlight that guide the U.S., tell what the U.S. can and can't do as far as its role in foreign policy, as far as its global role?
One example where the Constitution states what the U.S. has to do with against foreign nations is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, which states the Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with other nations. So this basically states that the Congress shall have power to decide or give consent to the president's opinions or attempts to try to either make treaties with other countries or even potentially start a war.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
So can you provide some examples of treaties and agreements with other nations and why are they important?
Some examples of treaties that have been made with other nations. The Treaty of Versailles, which ended the First World War, was very significant because it brought an end to the war, and also the Treaty of Paris, which brought an end to the American Revolutionary War and stopped the war so that there was no more fighting between the two nations.
Others? Okay, good, thanks.
All right, so, you've mentioned some international organizations a little earlier. I want to just dive in a little bit and talk about the importance of the United Nations and NATO in America's security. Can you help me out a little bit here? Can you tell me how they help secure the United States?
The UN is made up of over 190 countries, which allows for the United States to have alliances and also allows for the United States to have someone to trade with.
To go with my colleague Ella, having these alliances is important because and if the US were to ever get into conflict in the future with countries, building these alliances is important to keep our country safe.
To go off of my fellow colleagues, the reason that the UN was created was after World War II to create an alliance for countries around the world so that there would not be another world war.
Thank you.
Great. You mentioned in your presentation about the pandemic and the response being based on the severity of the crisis. I guess the U.S. response. So, though the U.S. is a world leader, and we talk in the question is about in what ways do nations of the world interact with one another. So, what do you think the U.S. role should be in terms of the pandemic, vaccines, travel bans, or how our nations how should they be interacting together since it is a global crisis?
One of the ways that the U.S. is interacting to help with COVID, with India right now, the U.S. is created the Save the Children Foundation has put up a funding for any United States citizens to donate money to the children in India to keep them safe from COVID. And this money would provide them with first aid kits and healthcare workers and even food that would last them up to 2 months.
To add on to my colleague Sarah, this Monday, the US said that they plan to share over 60 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to other countries around the world. And I also believe that the US should not impose as many travel bans targeting several countries because it could seem like we are xenophobic.
To add on, I believe that the United States should focus on our own country first and getting our citizens vaccinated before we focus on other countries and getting all of them vaccinated.
To add on to my colleague Ella, we should also focus on ourselves in other ways, such as the recent increase in hate crimes among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, which has increased over 1,000%. And so I believe that we should currently focus on stabilizing ourselves before we plan on helping other countries.
Thank you.
So let's get back to the Constitution. What elements of America's constitutionalism have influenced other countries?
Could you please rephrase the question?
Yeah, constitutionalism means that there is limited government. Leaders just can't do what they want. They're subject to a rule of law. And within a rule of law, there are various components of it. How has that been, how have we influenced other countries with our example?
One way that the United States has influenced other countries with our constitution is in Australia. They were to take up our how we have personal rights and natural rights with our citizens, and I think that is a very important thing since we all are allowed our natural rights in the U.S. And I think more other countries should take them up as well.
To add on to my colleague Isaiah, other countries have also adopted the idea of the separation of powers in other different kinds of countries. Some people, they may have different forms of it, but in a lot of countries, there is also separation of powers.
Good. Any other comments? Great, thank you.
So it looks like Kelly gave us the 1 minute sign about a minute ago. So
We have about 15 seconds left, so we're just
I want to just stop here, and I want to thank you for your wonderful follow-up answers and your presentation. I really appreciated your ability to connect NATO and the United Nations to how we keep America safe. I think you answered some of the follow-up questions very directly, and I enjoyed the way that everyone had an opportunity to participate. So thank you.
Yes, congratulations on a very nice presentation. I like how you had the statistics about percentage of aid, in a budget that's going to foreign aid, and you were really grounded in your facts there. And congratulations on being well prepared. And I know it's been a tough year for teachers and students, so I commend you for being at the National Invitational. And good job. Good luck.
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said. I just would simply add that I thought you were very well prepared and organized. There was a good breadth and depth of information here. You did drill down substantively on many of the issues, and I felt that was compelling. You didn't just try and gloss over things and move on. I thought you did very well with the Q&A, and if you didn't know something, you didn't wing it. which is, I think, a good, honest way of approaching this thing. So this was a very well organized and presented time we spent together. And thank you so much. I wish you the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.